Lesson 6.2b is on circles, and the reason why we have this in between lesson is because we have the surface area of a cylinder on the next lesson, and in order to find the surface area of a cylinder, we need to know how to find out the surface area or the area of the circles. So I'm going to briefly go over them. For this lesson, you're welcome to use a calculator to calculate pi, or 3.14. First, let's define a circle. A circle is the set of all points in a plane that are the same distance from a point, and we call that point the center. So basically you have a dot or the center, and if you would draw a line or lines that are equally distant from that point, you're going to actually draw a circle. So it doesn't matter where you draw the line, you're going to have the same measurement, and we call this a radius when you have halfway through the circle from the center. And if you have a line that goes through the center all the way across the circle, we call that the diameter. In order to find out the area of a circle, we need to know the diameter and radius and the relationship. So for example, for diameter, it's always going to be the twice of radius, because having these radius to radius is going to give you the diameter. In the same manner, if you cut this diameter in half, you're going to be able to find out the radius. Let's go ahead and see if we can find out the radius and diameter from this example. So I have two circles like this, and one I have a radius, one I have the diameter. So I'm going to try to find out the ones that are not there. So for example, for this first one, I have a radius of 3 meters. So what is going to be my diameter? Diameter is always going to be twice the radius, so this answer is going to be 6 meters. And for the second circle, you have the diameter of 16 feet because it's going all the way across. So my radius is going to be 8 feet. Now really the important part of this lesson comes in here, where you find the circumference and the area of a circle. So a circumference is actually going to be the distance around a circle, kind of like the perimeter for polygons, but only it's going to be in a circle shape. In order to find a circumference, you'll have to multiply pi times the diameter, or pi times 2 times radius, which will give you the diameter. In this class, you can either use the pi symbol if you have a calculator with a pi symbol, or you can just use 3.14. Either way, I want you to indicate if you're using a pi symbol or 3.14, because your calculation may be a little different. So let's take a look at the circle and find out the circumference. Let's say the sticker is going to have the radius of 3 centimeters. Okay, and I want to find out the circumference. So I can use either of the equation, either the first one or the second one, whichever one that's easier for me. In this case, I have the radius, so I'm going to use the second equation. So I go ahead and write down the equation as c, which is circumference, equals pi times 2 times 3. I am going to use the pi symbol from my calculator, and for those who are using your cell phone, if you put your phone into the horizontal mode, you can change your calculator into more advanced one, so you can go ahead and do that. If I'm using a pi symbol, after you plug in all the numbers, you're going to have 18.8495, and then it will continue with more numbers. I'm going to use 2 decimal places, so I'm going to cut it after the second one, but I do have to look at the number on the third one, the thousandth, and then I have to round it up if it's a number more than 5. So because 9 is more than 5, I'm going to round it up to 18.85, and I'll put centimeter. Now if you're using 3.14 for your calculation, you're going to end up with 18.84, so you just leave it as that. You don't have any more to worry about. But like I said, it is important that you indicate which numbers you're using, because as you can see, some numbers are going to be the same, some numbers are going to be different. So it helps me to understand which number you're using. If you have a diameter known to you, it's going to be an easier step because you don't have to go through the process of multiplying the number by 2. So all you have to do is, for example, if it's 6 across and you didn't know what the radius was, then you'll just do 6 times pi, which is really the same thing as the following example that we just worked on. Now finding the area is going to use a different equation, and I need you to remember these because circumference and area will have a different equation and you're going to use it quite frequently for this lesson. So the area of the circle is going to be indicated with a capital A equals pi times r squared. R squared means it's not 2 times r, it's going to be r times r. So you're going to multiply r twice. Some diameters are going to be equal to the squared of their radius, but it's okay. Just make sure you use the radius squared as the number for the equation. So I'm going to use the same numbers from the previous example and try to find out the area. My area is going to equal pi times r squared, so I'm going to plug in 3 in the place of r, and then I'm going to do pi times 9 eventually. And when I plug that into my calculator, I am going to have 28.274, and then it also will have many more numbers going forever. So like I said, I'm going to just use 2 decimals. So my final answer is going to be 28.27 in this case. If I am using 3.14 times 3 times 3, which is 9, it's going to give me an answer of 28.26, slightly smaller, but it's okay because that's going to be the answer that you're going to get if you're using 3.14. Okay, what if you have a circle with a diameter of 12 feet? How can we find out the area of a circle when you only have a diameter? The first step is to identify what your radius is going to be. We already established that diameter is 2 times the radius because radius times 2 or radius plus radius will give you the diameter. So I'm going to cut this in half or divide this number by 2 to get my radius first. In this case, because I have 12, my radius is going to be 6. So once I find out my radius, I'm going to plug it into my equation to find out the area, which is going to be pi times 6 squared, or it could be 3.14 times 6 squared, which is going to give you the same equation. After you set up the equation, the only part that you'll have to work with is the calculation, which you can do it by plugging in the numbers that you have. So for this question, actually if you're using a pi symbol, you're going to have 113.0973, and then you continue for the rest of the numbers. And because you're going to use 2 of these digits, 2 of the decimal points, when you carry over, it's going to make it into 113.10 instead of 097. If you're using 3.14 times 6 squared, it's just going to give you 113.04. So you're going to have a little more of the gap in between those 2 numbers. And again, that's why I need you to write down the symbol that you're using for your calculation. For your homework, I gave you the 6.2b practice from the practice bundle, and it's going to be from page 255b if you just scroll down the page number. Now, you have 14 questions total, but I'm going to have you skip 13 and 14 because I want to go over that together in the live lesson. So make sure you don't do 13 and 14. You're going to work on number 1 through 12 in this homework.